Chapter 6. On the way. Where? 22. The gagging smells in the lower dungeons were as vile as those who were imprisoned down there. Unredeemable men and women of all races lived out the rest of their miserable sentences 7 floors below the ground, caged in behind a series of no less than 11 locked gates and 10 armed guard stations, wallowing in the filth and enmity that they had created. Grim voices echoed eerily throughout the maze-like corridors. There was distant coughing and an occasional wail of anguish or insanity. Slimy water dripped from the ceiling and walls of slippery, mossy bedrock. This was the realm of Tungulin's most notorious cage criminals, the perverse, the wicked, and the deadly. There were rats aplenty and foul disease, despite the guards' best efforts to keep some semblance of cleanliness and order. And the king kept the group circulating throughout all of it to show humanity, whether they would accept it or not, with refreshments, words, and spiritual comforts. King Tital Vantoo, flanked by his personal knights of the guard, held a kerchief over his nose as he passed the labyrinthian general population quarters toward a specially designed holding room. Otthagorus, the wizard, accompanied him, as did Wyzard there in Commander Binder's absence. Vantoo entered the room like a storm cloud, about ready to burst, facing 4 shackled men against the wall, and one reclined on a floor pallet. 2 humans, 2 Glocky, and 1 Tiberlian. Although just a day ago they had each been dressed in the finest clothes of the Tungulin aristocracy and were free to roam the streets. This morning their clothes were torn to rags, and 2 of them were noticeably injured, one of the Glocky badly. Yet King Vantoo had no pity for them. He eyed each of them with bitter contempt for good reasoning. The punishment for an assassination attempt of a king, he said sharply, is death. Death by beheading. He paced the room from one side to the other, glaring angrily at the collaborators, all of them Gharnian born. The punishment for treason is the same. You are all guilty on both counts, and your executions will be carried out within the hour. Do you have anything to say in your defense? Enlighten me with your knowledge. 1 man sobbed. 2 stared vacantly. The remaining duo blazed back at him with eyes fearful yet defiant. No, the single Tiberlian replied for them. Would it make any difference if we did? No, Vantoo answered, just a formality to ask. He squeezed his hand over the wound in his side. He could feel the ooze of blood beneath the bandage. Had he reacted 1 second slower to their attack, the blast would have certainly killed him. His wrists were bruised from the wire they had used to bind him with, and his head sore from the blow that had been intended to render him unconscious. He had proven a greater adversary than they had expected. Vantoo edged closer to the would-be assassins, close enough to smell their bitter sweat. He sneered in the face of one of them in particular, the badly wounded Glocky shooter, whose firing hand had been severed at the wrist in the fray. Cowards, he hissed at them. You disgust me, the lot of you. We bring you in from your country and treat you as our own, and provide you with the opportunity to thrive here and lead happy, peaceful lives as free Gharnian men. And still you serve the distant Gharnians. What reward could they have offered you to attempt you to try something so foolish? What could corrupt you? Lies? Offers of riches? Or lands? Life here is good for good people. You are free men in Tungulin, blessed with liberty and opportunity. Life under the Gharnians would be nothing short of slavery and animal servitude. The closest one to Vantoo spoke. "You are naive, local king," he said. "Things are going to change soon, continent-wide. It is inevitable." Vantoo kept eye contact, patiently waiting and allowing. "We did not choose, condone, or condemn it," he went on, "but we have been forced to try to make the most of it. The Gharnian dominion is inevitable, and it will be better to side with them than rise up against them, being the only two choices given. Most feel that it will be better to hope for any kind of opportunity from the victors than the forgotten promises from the defeated dead." "Know this," said the Tiberlian, crouching beside him. "It is written that a great leader will arise in the last age of Tiers 512. A great redeemer, a savior, a first god, and that sorrowful age draws to a close even now. He is come. The pendulum has reached its apex and now begins to swing in the other direction of cleanliness, of your entropy. The kingdom of day wanes and will soon become the empire of Lord Gilgahar the Great and his perfect dominion. All signs point to it. The prophecies direct it. He will codify and bring order to this barbaric world. Order, discipline, and stability to these unruly wild lands. We will have progress in civilization, from sea to crashing sea, north and south, roads and bridges, safe transportation for all, equal share of the riches and prosperity for all. The masses believe this. They want this. Recruits are volunteering for military service all across the continent, Vantoo. Like us, you will either be a party to this evolution of progress or you will perish from its regression, and in time be forgotten to your children's children's children." "You are gullible fools," Hugart replied. "You are the ones who shall perish and be forgotten, long before you ever see that wretched day, before you see this day's nightfall." "Sire, I do not ask for forgiveness because I know I deserve none," the Tiberlian continued, trembling. His eyes looked lost. He then lowered his voice so that only King Vantoo could hear him. "The Gharnian resolve is strong, my lord, as strong as battle steel. They are persuasive in both strategy and voice." "Enough to turn you traitor?" Vantoo crowed at him. "Where is your honor, man? Does that not stand for something? They entice your majesty and they seduce with their offers of power, of privilege and prestige. But that is not all. They have dark magic behind them. Powerful dark magic. It enables and fulfills wishes. It emboldens their persuasive tongue. It dominates the direction of reasonable debate and the interpretation of speech. The prisoner most badly injured, the Glocky who had formerly been a chef in the king's service for over a decade, found the will and strength to speak. "And they have allies of which this world has not witnessed in eons, King Vantoo. I've seen them in my dreams. Coming, fearful titans that they can call upon at their whim and discretion to do their bidding. Great ancient demigods and demons of the dark before an army of revenants, of which there is no defense. Gods and demons." The Tiberlian smiled, a bit of insanity crossing over his face. "This is true." Tital Vantoo looked down his nose at the defiant, condemned spy. He pulled back his lips, snarling at the enemy with the traditional Gaethel manner. Then he turned to Hugart and said as he rose to depart the chamber, They have lost themselves to madness. Execute them and bury them deep. Tell no one of their fate or presence here. They are hereby forgotten. Begin with the injured. Hugart nodded. Gilgahar returns, the Tiberlian called. He has yet to loose the realm of the Morgothian. The Morgoth comes for you all. Vantoo left through the security door with Otthagorus and his knights close by his side. Outside, the elder inner council wizards awaited them, following in tow behind them as they passed. In my very own bedchamber, he snarled contemptuously. Traitors and assassins in my very own bedroom, Otthagorus. One of them my personal valet of 3 years. I rue the day he was welcomed in. How I wish Benjyn Binder were here. Please tell me good news. Any word from the search party trio yet? None, sire, Otthagorus answered, escorting Vantoo by the elbow back through the sally port. Yet the battle was subsided. We suspect that the Gharnian warships continue to linger, cloaked and hidden somewhere in the nearby mountains, but they have left the Gogmore injured there to the ravenous wolverines. The filthy animals, the king growled. Not even the simple-minded Gogmores deserve such a fate. We must hasten King Day's departure immediately, with or without the wizard. It is not safe for him here anymore either. Assemble the crew I've selected. We will send Dedlin after them once he returns. If he does return. Any word from Johnhausen? He is still missing and cannot be found, Your Highness, Otthagorus answered. No one has seen him since the emergency secret council last evening. That concerns me greatly. He did not seem right last night. I fear ill tidings. Things are certainly in disarray this morning, the wizard said, but at least you are alive. Vantoo nodded. For the time being, he said, send word via sphere to Tital and Dindiane, Oleander, Poed, and the City of Gold. Tell them what has transpired here today. It has already gone out by message spheres to those cities and more. Very good. And sire? Yes, Otthagorus. The Gogmore have begun, they're attacking the villagers near the southern wall in retaliation for the trepidations last night. There are many townsfolk dead and injured. Gaebryl is blaming us for the decimation of his soldiers. The local guard is holding them back, but we need to send military reinforcements to drive them back out again. Vantoo nodded. Do it immediately, he ordered. Send 2 guerrilla squads and a medical rescue unit. Bring as many townsfolk as we are able. Bring them in. Get them behind our walls. Set up temporary shelters for all who need them. And make room for everyone. Otthagorus signaled to his associates to fulfill Vantoo's commands with a nod of his head. It is still an hour before true sunrise, yet this is already a dark day for Tungulin, he said. Vantoo mounted the next flight of steps like an athlete half his age. It is a dark age. For the entire kingdom, Otthagorus. Sire, what of, the old wizard paused as if he did not want to say the word aloud. What of the Morgothian the prisoner spoke of? Vantoo's heart grew cold. He stopped at the top of the stairs and turned to his most able wizard, grim and noticeably shaken by that name. He took a brief repose and a deep breath before exhaling. Say nothing of it again to anyone. We shall face that horror if and when it arrives, and not a minute sooner. 23. The twin morning suns came up over the mountains in the east simultaneously as though they were prepared to do battle. It was hot and bright almost immediately, and not a cloud dared show itself for fear it would evaporate instantly into mist. "We'd best be getting back," Gaebryl said to Jamesyn, shielding the morning light from his eyes with the palm of his hand. They had been strolling along the paths of the public gardens for a while to get a breath of fresh air, dressed in common townsfolk attire to keep from attracting attention, but now stepped down the narrow stone stairway that led to the busy market thoroughfare, stretched out along the myriad of streets far below them in multi-level tiers. He had a sturdy brace on his injured leg, which caused him to limp and occasionally stagger, but his recovery was well underway. Every step showed signs of progress. "I sense the need for haste this morning. There's a bad vibration in the air." Jameson's spirits had been down from the moment he had risen from a sleepless night's repose. His eyes were affixed on the ground before his weary feet, his hands deeply in his pockets. "I shouldn't have let him go," he said quietly, referring to the old wizard Dedlin Dane. He had repeated those sentiments repeatedly all morning. "I had him right here, and I let him go before we ever had a chance to converse. I knew better, Gaebryl." At the base of the market stairs, they mingled in with the flow of the crowd, heading back toward the palace of King Vantoo. Gaebryl carefully led the way through the populous streets, deflecting overly aggressive solicitors trying to ply their wares at every step and turn. He was alert and cautious, watching everyone that passed them with a sharp eye, even though it was probably safer for them there in the public streets than up there in the king's royal court that day. No one would expect them out mingling amongst the commoners. Pasted freshly to stone obelisks along the outskirts of the landscape promenade were royal proclamations from King Vantoo's office announcing the reinstatement of the volunteer Royal Knights of Gharnian. Young men continued to gather around the posts, reading the information with interest and a bit of trepidation. A mild electricity was abuzz in the conversation in the streets and local pubs. Gaebryl and Jamesyn passed across the rim of the outer wall of the fourth ground level garden, a terrace that overlooked many square miles of tilled farm acreage, and they passed the bustling livestock market. The rich, fertile odor of the domestic beasts rose from the pens and stables. Various breeds of cattle, sheep, deer, goats, oxen, ponies and domestic unicorn, asses, llamas, rams, molten and pasture buffalo. Closer at hand were the smaller domestic breeds being bought, sold, and traded: chicken, geese, dove, turkey, rabbit, ground pig, several varieties of duck, and colorful girl hens from Haas. Nearby, a brazen pig roasted over a hot pit. The delicious aroma of beer and cooking meat was a welcome reprieve from the pungent dung of the barnyard. "Do you think he's dead?" "Who? Dedlin? Dedlin's not dead," Gaebryl said. "He's fashionably late, as wizards are prone to be. He'll be back. If not this morning, then this afternoon. Nightfall at the latest. He's probably busy doing, wizardly things. Who knows with those guys? There's no need to worry, though, I'm telling you. Dedlin Dane strikes me as one who can take care of himself. He no doubt has the 9 lives of a cat. Unless 8 have been spent already," the boy said, turning to face the new suns. The silver morning light brightened his unblemished youthful face. There were no wrinkles yet around his watery slate blue gray eyes, no worry lines that long years have a tendency to draw out. But Gaebryl saw a burden there, nonetheless. Back behind those trodden eyes, a weight of great responsibility beginning to now take its toll. In an attempt to lighten the boy's mood, if at all possible, Gaebryl spotted a food stand offering various types of fruits and nuts and cheeses and nodded toward it. "If the stone seeker is a bit peckish," he began, "if I retrieve you some varieties from that market and I'll carry it for you. I'll be your cheese bearer." Jamesyn wasn't in the mood, and Gaebryl's attempt at humor had fallen flat. "I would hate to have come this far and sacrificed this much, to have this quest now dead in the water," he replied, remaining where he was. Gaebryl paused momentarily to observe an anxious crowd gathering ahead of them. "Well, if I've learned anything, there's always more than one solution to every problem, Jamesyn Day. If Dedlin knows where this stone is, chances are so will others. Perhaps he's spoken to others about it. Maybe Drer Fregoode? Have hope. The day is young and full of promise." Castle folk were busy clustering together along the northern walls on all levels, watching something that was going on beyond the castle reach. Whatever it was clearly distressing to them. The mixed murmurs sounded troubled. Fortunately, Jamesyn was preoccupied and did not notice the rising commotion. "Let's get back to the depot," Gaebryl said, guiding him by the shoulder away from it all. They passed back inside the market gate and up towards the 5th level. Toward the Skycraft depot for their departure. There's an overused saying that I still find more than often than not, things might be worse before they can get better, they say. 24. The 10th ground level was amassed with panicked Tungulinians. From his balcony suite, high within the royal tower terrace, King Vantoo watched them swarming below. He was as provoked and angered as they were, even more so, for out beyond the wheat and cornfields of Tungulin, less than 100 feet above the Gaelothian forest, were 2 glistening, brazen, black and bronze Gharnian warships, poised like 2 great massive birds of prey, hovering on a warm, hazy updraft, missile chutes wide open and heated, ready for firing. One of them, as the silver Gharnian script on the bow revealed, was aptly named the Mount of Steel, and the other, in fiery red script, the Godstrike 5. The claws on Vantoo's 4-fingered hands scraped the rail as he gripped it. He had only minutes before their appearance sent out the 3rd search party of the morning after Dedlin, Binder, and Drer Fregoode into the forests. Things were certainly speeding up since the council the night before. And he found himself caught up in this unexpected whirling dervish of a storm quite unprepared. It seemed like with each passing minute that there were new, dark developments to contend with as king. Yet, remarkably, despite his injuries and lack of sleep, Vantoo's mind was acute and sharp, his body invigorated. His heart swelled with determination. The heat of battle was obviously upon him again. From behind, above, and on both sides of him, a regatta of 7 magnificent silver-white Tungulinian warships advanced slowly in the direction of the enemy warships, descending to strategically position themselves directly between the Gharnians and the castle city, halting above the golden-crested wheat fields protectively before their great king. They were sleek, polished, streamlined warcraft, large and precious and ferocious in appearance. The cheers from the Tungulinians perched upon the walls rose to such a tumult that it caused goosebumps to ride up King Vantoo's arms and neck. It was out of his hands now, this confrontation. Whatever was to be, would be. It was up to the battle-seasoned warship admirals now to answer this Gharnian threat as only they knew best. He had already given them the freedom to interact as they saw fit. Despite counsel by his advisors who bade him remain somewhere safely hidden, Vantoo had decided instead to face his enemy forthright. Admittedly out of overreaction, but he had to. His inner council warriors and wizards surrounded him protectively. From one of Vantoo's foremost Tungulinian warships, a small delivery pod was ejected and jettisoned toward the Gharnian ships. It held the heads of the 5 would-be assassins of the king. A larger spherical pod was released from the foremost enemy ship to intercept it mid-ground. "Your Highness," a voice said from behind him. Vantoo returned to find Hugart bowing. "Good news, sire. Commander Binder has returned from the forest. He is on his way here now." "Excellent, excellent. And Drer, Dedlin, how are they?" "Drer Fregoode has returned as well, sire, but there is no news yet of the Wizard Deluxe Dedlin Dane. He did not return with them, just the 2. "I see," he said, deeply concerned. "I see." Through a pair of scanners, he watched as the Godstrike 5 intercepted the funeral pod with a crane beneath its hull and pull it on board. "Find Prince Gaebryl and King Day at once," he then ordered. "Assemble everyone at the depot immediately. Ready or not, it is time for them to depart." Hugart bowed. "Yes, sire, at once," he said, and made his way from the suite. A low-frequency, reverberating horn blast emitted from the mount of steel, the sound so loud that it shook the castle city walls like an earthquake, rattling windows, mortar, and loosened stones to crumble, causing dust to rise and deafening all who were out there listening. Afterward, an eternity seemed to pass as anticipation swelled. Then, through the scanners, King Vantoo detected a larger-sized sky sled detached from a breach in the base of the forward hull. There were 3 men on board the sled. No flag was flown, so the intention of this parley could only be guessed. They flew incredibly fast and low, brushing the tips of the long grasses of the outlying fields, heading fearlessly toward Vantoo's Tungulinian warships. 2 of the men, by their dress, were Gharnian soldiers, large and battle-ready. The third one, however, a human man standing on the bow, was smaller in stature, presenting himself, no doubt, as the Gharnian mouthpiece for this morning's standoff. The sky sled first approached the foremost Tungulin command ship, slowed, and then wheeled to a halt less than 100 yards from the bow. Vantoo was unable to discern much from that distance away. Then, 2 Tungulin warships. The fighter craft launched from one of his own warships and advanced to meet the Gharnian party midway, 2 against 1. Cautiously, with their weapons drawn and at the ready, the 3 aircraft drew together midfield and swirled like a mid-air whirlpool in position to confer. The conference between them was surprisingly short. The 3 Gharnians voluntarily surrendered their weapons, and their small craft was securely attached between the 2 larger Tungulinian fighter craft with sturdy plasteel lines. Together, they eased forward towards Vantoo's balcony suite for a parley. As they approached, King Vantoo was both surprised and distraught to find that the lone figure standing with the 2 Gharnian soldiers was none other than his own police captain, Saber Janhausen, the man who had been in charge of the Tungulin police for over the past decade. Inconceivably, Janhausen was, in fact, another dubious traitor. The sky sled drew close enough to the tower so that words could be audibly spoken and exchanged between them, but still far enough away that Vantoo could be protected by firepower and the magic of his wizards. The Gaebryl king shook with rage. "Saber Johnhausen, I do hope that you are a prisoner of the Gharnians and have not gone over to them of your own accord," he called as they neared and slowed to a stop. After a laugh of sarcasm, "The 5 men you executed, why send their heads to us?" the man called back, his voice sounding different now, and an accent that Vantoo had never heard him use before. "They were not ours, they were Gharnian born. We have no use for severed heads." "You have less than 1 minute's time to speak your mind, traitor. At that time, I will give the order for you and your 2 escorts to be dispatched to your demises and your warships blown from the sky to join you in the fires of the netherworld." "First of all, your highness, I am no traitor. I am a lifelong Gharnian patriot. I am Gharnian born and bred," Johnhausen declared. "I've not worn a soldier's uniform in some time, but I still have some value to the power in Gharn. I am nearly 300 years old, Vantoo, blessed with long life by powers you dare not know. And in those 3 centuries, I've only spent the last 30 with you in Tungulin, gathering vital information for my homeland. Even before that, I traveled all over this kingdom doing various deeds for the Dominion cause, mostly testing the political climate and the geographical topographies, and gathering intelligence of potential utilitarian interest. You've been invaluable to me, your lowness, and I thank you. Secondly, do not be a fool. Do you not see that I have come forward to you unarmed? That is because I know that we have the upper hand here. Should you have us dispatched, the heavenly mount of steel and the Godstrike 5 will open fire on the populace of Tungulin gathered there upon the walls to observe like curious sheep in a theater audience. No doubt your warships would then certainly shoot us down, but not before we had unloaded 10 to 20 more powerful missiles into your precious city of what? Science and magic and maybe curds of cheese and biscuits? And the thousands of onlookers I see before me? Bam! Then by tomorrow morning, 100 more ships will be here. We will destroy your city in 1 day. Tungulin will be little more than a great pile of smoky rubble in the hollow of this valley by this time tomorrow night, Gaebryl Overlord. This is a certainty, but it does not need to happen. It is entirely up to you. Vantoo felt his left eyelid twitching nervously. Do you think you want this to end the standoff peacefully, or do you want to die with everyone else here? Johnhausen called loudly to the king. No battle, no bloodshed. The terms are quite simple. We want the boy and the key he holds. Then we'll go. That's it. Just the boy and the key. You know that I know that he is here and that he has it. A growl came from deeply within the king's chest. He kept from answering because of the rage he was fighting control with. Consider this carefully, King Vantoo. I know we are outnumbered, but the weapons on board these 2 warships are unlike anything you have seen before, old-timer. We have not been idle since the last Great War, Johnhausen forewarned with a bloated colloquy. We have advanced our technology behind your wildest nightmares, oh fat one. Just give us the boy and the key now, and we will go peacefully. I beg you, for old time's sake, oh ancient artifact, choose peace here today. King Vantoo took a few moments to think of his wife, her beautiful face, and his 16 children from 3 to 69 years old to help him cool down a bit and think with a more relevant control of his outraged and inflamed emotions demanding immediate retaliation. Look around you now, the king then cried out in calm response. Look at the beautiful morning sky above you, and the grasses and the trees, and these great city walls. Look upon them well, for these are the last things you will ever lay your traitorous eyes upon, Saberjonhausen, or whatever your true name may be. Not only do I dismiss your threats, I mock your terms. I am King Tital Vantoo, a free man until death, ruler of the great city of Tungulin and the territory of Galgaria, and neither I nor my people fear you, your threats, or your dogs of war, Jonhausen. Know that you have served your master for the last time here today. Are you ready? Don't be a fool, Vantoo, Jonhausen bellowed back. Do you believe me stupid enough to stand here before you unprepared? I'm offering you and your citizens mercy. There are scores of weapons trained directly on you right now. If you do not fear the 100 ships, surely here by tomorrow, then how about 1,000 by the week's end? I assure you, this is the truth. Call upon the boy and live another day, you burnt, black-skinned, idiot, fool. Give your people another day. Your parlay is up, and you have failed, Vantoo cried out, and then just after a merry farewell, almost as though by some magic in his words, the 2 Gharnian warships began to pop and quiver and dance spastically above the trees back beyond them. Greater explosions could be heard coming from within them, and a great tearing, wrenching sound. Then blasts of fire belched through vents in both their sides. The mount of steel began a slow spin down towards the forest. It exploded just above the treetops, raining fire and blue oil into the jungle below. Then the God-struck 5 followed suit. The crowds along the walls cheered at the spectacle and praised their brave king, repeatedly chanting his name. Saberjonhausen, witnessing the destruction of the 2 Gharnian warships behind him, stood there aghast and then suddenly speechless, of which Vantoo was grateful. Behold your mighty warships, the king mocked at him with glee. How is this possible? Jonhausen cried, terror now in his quaking voice. It was not by me or my wizards, you pissbag. Care for tea, Captain? Otthagorus explained from behind the king, as perplexed and amazed as was King Vantoo. But blessings be, I'd say they were both sabotaged somehow from within. Vantoo felt as if he had just witnessed some kind of a karmic miracle. We are truly blessed by the gods this day, he murmured to the lead wizard, still exceptionally angry and frustrated and wanting to explode. Excuse me, sire, someone else said from behind him. Vantoo turned to find Commander Binder advancing through the room like an angry bull, shoulders plowing through the air right and left. He brought a large blast rifle up to his shoulder and quickly aimed into the diplomatic area. I apologize for being tardy, he said, and fired 3 shots. Jonhausen's body exploded into pieces, and the 2 Gharnians did likewise. They tumbled from the unbalanced sled, falling 100 feet to the hard ground below for carrion food. and the unmanned sled then wandered off into the sky. "Apology accepted," Vantoo said, slapping him on the back. He then turned toward his window. "Fire upon those ships," he cried to his generals. "Destroy them. There will be no prisoners. We will show Gharn what they henceforth expect from Tungulin, the city of science and magic." The word traveled fast. Within moments, the Gharnian warships were bombarded by heavy missile fire, the likes of which had never been witnessed by anyone there before. A square mile of Gaelothian forest was soon aflame, the smoke billowing toward the heavens like a pyre fit for the gods. "Johnhausen was right, though," a frazzled Binder told his king. "There will be many more Gharnian warships to come. Many more." Vantoo snarled. "Bring them," he said. He bounded down the steps to check on his wife and children in their residence, ordering to all who were there in tow, "Go put out the flames so that the Gaelothian forest does not burn." And then, no prisoners. 25. Gaebryl and Jamesyn had heard the vast explosions. The news of what had just happened spread quickly throughout the castle city. Tungulinians were running for safety in every direction, telling and retelling the story of their brave king and how he fearlessly faced down and somehow defeated the two great Gharnian warships single-handedly with brave words alone. Gaebryl guarded Jamesyn closely as they ran along with the chaotic streams of panicked crowds through the streets. Before entering the depot, where their group was gathering for departure, Gaebryl suddenly pulled Jamesyn into a corner behind a stone arched doorway, giving them a good vantage point from which to study things a little bit closer first. "What say we have us a look for a second?" he said. There was a lot of added security at the entrances and exits, but the way things were falling apart, that offered them little comfort. The room was currently being cleared of all unnecessary personnel. A small crowd was gathering around the skycraft that had apparently been chosen for them, a sleek fighter craft obviously designed for its speed and maneuverability. The name Sunshaft Aurealis was written in a beautiful flowing script on the bow in fiery golden letters. "Should serve us nicely enough," the prince warrior replied. "Now let's see who the king has decided will accompany us on this little journey of ours." "Look, there's Drer Fregoode," Jamesyn said. "They've returned from the forest. Do you see Dedlin?" "No," Gaebryl said, "not yet. But look over there. Stardeer, those wizards craft. It returned and has docked. That's encouraging." "A Mahekian," Jamesyn said, spotting him making preparations near the pilot seat. "I believe that is the same Masterpilot that we met in the council last evening, is it not?" Yeah, I remember him." "Percy was his name. He's packing, as if coming along." A small, determined promenade marched fervently through the adjacent door of the depot. The knights of the guard scattered toward the corners of the room to set up a protective perimeter. "There's King Vantoo's entourage," Jamesyn said. "Binder's there with him. Looks as though they're arguing." "Yeah, come, Gaebryl, let's join them. I must find Dedlin Dane." Wait, he said, holding Jamesyn back by the arm. "Look over in the shadows, near the far corner, right there, behind the exhaust fan louvers." Jamesyn squinted. "I don't see anything." "Keep looking." Jamesyn did as Gaebryl said. He watched the shadows without blinking. As his eyes adjusted, he discerned a figure lurking there, a large figure, draped and hooded. "I see," he said. "Who do you think that is?" "Not who, but what," Gaebryl replied. It is no human, it's Authorian, I'm quite sure, and a large one at that. I'd like to make sure of his intentions before we go parading down there. I don't see any reason why he'd be skulking back there in the shadows like that. As we are up here, Jamesyn pointed out, for our reasons. As King Vantoo neared the sunshaft Aurelius, all his subjects halted and bowed respectfully, but the king immediately insisted that they ignore his presence and get on with their preparations. Gaebryl watched keenly as the Thorian he had spotted stepped out both carefully and reservedly from his hiding spot, uncovering the hood from his head. His mane was thick, hanging in long braids over his massive shoulders. His brows were taut, and as he glared about the chamber with his bright golden cat eyes. Okay, come on. I think we're safe enough, Gaebryl said. The Thorians come from the shadows, and I saw King Vantoo acknowledge him. They're acquainted still. Stay close by my side. I don't trust anyone today. Before the workers and crew had finished bowing to King Vantoo, they spotted Gaebryl and King Day coming up the back ramp almost simultaneously and began bowing again to them as well. Thank you, King Vantoo announced abruptly, wisely drawing attention away from them back to himself. Please continue with your work. We are in dire haste. Everyone did as they were told and went on about their business. The old Gaethothe king hurriedly made his way over to join Gaebryl and Jamesyn near the rear of the new craft with his entourage. Good. It's good to find you both here. We have pressing business. Listen, Gaebryl, because of events that have transpired this morning, I am insisting that you be returned henceforth to Perce for your own safety, along with your young personal valet here, aboard this craft as soon as possible. At least that is the information that my staff has allowed to pass to the public, if you catch my meaning. He had nodded to King Day when he had referred to him as Gaebryl's personal valet and given a wink. This was all an excellent ploy devised by Commander Binder just minutes before to keep from attracting any more unnecessary attention to King Day's presence there. Simultaneously, we're going to send out a good number of fighter crafts similar to this one in all directions to help confuse and lose anyone who might be waiting to follow you, he said in a soft voice. Whatever is packed now goes. Whatever isn't stays. I have had my inner council preparing this craft for your departure all morning. I think you'll find it adequate. To remain here any longer would surely be folly. We heard the news, Gaebryl said. Are you hurt? Badly? All men, Vantoo said, but those I have trusted for years have turned out to be murderous traitors. And already this morning we have seen the aggression and then the mysterious destruction of 2 Gharnian warships at our very doorstep. How this happened, I am unsure. But there is no doubt that Tungulin will be to blame for it, and we will surely suffer the repercussions. We've seen Drer Fregoode and Commander Binder over there in the docking bay is Stardeer. But what word of Dedlin Dane, Vantoo? Jamesyn asked fearfully. Where is the wizard? Alas, I am sorry, he replied forebodingly. We have no word of him yet, your majesty, although the tale of their incredible night will be presented to you shortly, Vantoo told them. I will not patronize you. Dedlin has yet to return from the forest, and when last seen, things look dire for him. But be heartened. I have had years of experience with many wizards, Dedlin among them, and I can only give you this advice. Do not fear for him. Wizards work in their own ways and work best when things seem their bleakest. They are secretive and notorious for entertaining their own schemes and schedules, to the aggravation of the rest of us. Expect him when you least expect him, or then again, possibly never again. Jamesyn shook his head. Without him, we are stumbling around, lost in the dark. Maybe, hopefully, he will still come for you, Vantoo said with an attempt of encouragement. Otherwise, you might have to seek another light for guidance. You cannot stay here now, that is clear. Come, he then said to them in a more positive tone. Let me introduce you to your crew, and a finer one has never been assembled. They sauntered together down the ramp. As for your primary pilot, I commend my very own Masterpilot Perce. This delightful craft, Sunshaft Aurealis, is his. May they both serve you as well as they have served me. Percy, he called as the Mayhecian stepped down toward them. This is Prince Gaebryl of Perce and his valet. The mouthless, noseless, and earless Mayhecian bowed toward Gaebryl, leaning somewhat respectfully toward the young valet at his side. He was proud-looking, fierce Mayhecian warrior, tall, muscled, and pale. It is my deepest honor to serve you, he said telepathically, in a voice as smooth as cream. Gaebryl returned the gesture. Jamesyn nodded. Already Jamesyn liked this Percy fellow. Vantoo continued around the craft. Drer Fregoode, whom you have already met, will also accompany you. He is my friend, well-traveled in the lands and in the ways of the wildlands, and he will be a great asset to your crew. He has been one of my greatest and most stalwart advisors and a friend, the king advised. We served together in the military for many years. He is masterful in the old stories and has many friends abroad, from the greatest castles to the smallest village pubs. He will help you in many ways in Dedlin's stead, until which time the wizard returns. They were or are close friends. And should you need a story or song around the campfire, I'm a decent lore master and a minstrel of some reputation as well, Drer cordially told them, smiling as he bowed in respect. And my reluctant servant, Commander Benjyn Binder, will also be among your escorts, King Vantoo said. Binder was busy tossing his few bundles into the lower hold. He nodded, but his bow was not as sincere. At least until you grow tired of his sour demeanor and sending scurrying back here to me. A few chuckles quickly passed at Binder's expense. Commander, Gaebryl acknowledged. Truly, Binder is the most trustworthy man I have known. Ignore his sometimes cross demeanor if you're able. He did not want to accompany your party out of his loyalty to me and his beloved station here in Tungulin, but I have insisted because I value his services so highly. He is smart and strong with a keen ability to see things more objectively than most, especially when it comes to the safety and security of that which he has sworn to protect. He will bring a certain balance to your group you may not have otherwise. His body may be covered with the scars of battle and war, but his heart remains unblemished. We're honored to have his valuable services, Gaebryl said. And lastly, a latecomer. This is Otthagorus, a Thordian knight of some renown and distant reputation, King Vantoo said, nodding towards the Thordian that Gaebryl had seen lurking before in the shadows. I bid you to welcome him warmly and to accept his valuable services graciously. Heed his instincts and you won't go wrong. He will be of great aid should you encounter any unexpected adversaries of the Gharnian nature. The cloaked figure stepped respectfully forward, but still Gaebryl poised protectively by Jameson's side, nearly between them. Commander Binder, too, straightened up and scowled at the Thordian with knotted brows, but for that and other personal reasons. Otthagorus's yellow slit eyes glowed like amber fires within the thick wool of his cat-like face. He strode forward with prowess, strength, and feline grace, evident in his every movement. Cautious eyes were upon him, since he was the only stranger amongst the group. The Thordian averted his eyes from Gaebryl and bowed deeply before the two of them. It is a pleasure to meet you, Sir Otthagorus, Gaebryl responded carefully. If King Vantoo trusts you, then so shall we. You are as wise as the stories say you are, said the Thordian in a deep, resonating voice as he straightened. Please, you may address me simply as Ott. Well, for the record, I don't approve of his presence at all, Commander Binder growled, stepping forward toward them. He gleamed threateningly at the Thordian. He should be gagged and bound until we... Binder! King Vantoo snapped. This is not the place or time. Commander Binder clenched his jaws tight. He glanced at the king, glared vehemently towards the Thordian Otthagorus again for a few tense seconds, then went back to the matter at hand, packing away his belongings. My apologies, he murmured. Obviously it is no matter that I think. See, Vantoo told him, he'll be fine. Stress and a lack of sleep. Binder has had a bad history with Thordians, which I'm sure you'll hear about soon enough, Vantoo said, hurrying them along. Please, board your ship. I have much to do now myself here in the castle city, and your destiny awaits you elsewhere. Percy fired up the turbines on Sunshaft Aurealis. It was a clean, powerful sound. Several other skycrafts, sizes and designs similar to Percy's Sunshaft, were departing at intervals at the mouth of the depot, heading off in many different directions as decoys. According to the king's plan, Jamesyn watched another decoy crew mounting a nearby ship for departure, including another blond boy his same age and stature. The small accompanying crew of the five who had been assembled there clambered and climbed aboard the Sunshaft and found their seats and positions, all but King Day, who dallied reluctantly near the lowered stair ramps, scanning around the room for any last hope of spotting Dedlin Dane scurrying in, frantic, tattered, and late. Please, Vantoo pleaded, keep your eyes on your goal now. Remember, there's always more than one solution to every problem, and Dedlin's absence may very well be a blessing in disguise down the road in some wizardly way. We will do all that we can do here while we await your good news. In the meantime, continue steadily and swiftly on, never tiring, and utilize every available resource at your disposal. Keep your face in the wind and a shadow far below you. It will be no vacation, but leastways, I hope you can find moments you could still enjoy in your adventure. Gaebryl reached over to guide Jamesyn aboard. We really should go. Final details. No one here knows in what direction you now proceed, my friends. Not even I, the king went on, finishing things up between them. I suggest you keep your own details of your mission a secret from even your crew. The less that they know about it, the better for all. Only what is necessary. I will keep your departure here a secret for as long as I possibly can. Thank you, Tital, Gaebryl said, fondly gripping the old king's arm. Vantoo's face grimaced. It was then that the bloodstains seeping through his royal robes could be seen between his clenched fingers. Get to your doctor soon, Gaebryl told him. Be careful, my son, the Gaebryl king said softly to the prince and squeezed Gaebryl close with one arm. A blessing you are to your father. Take care of yourself, old man, and get some sleep. Vantoo smiled painfully. Soon, and you take care of this boy. I will, I promise. I await good news. Now fly like the wind, and pray don't look back until you've reached your destiny. Go! Within a few minutes, the silvery towers of Tungulin had receded into the distant morning mists. West Watcher Tower, gleaming proudly above them all. Perce, the Mahekian master pilot, was at the helm, guiding his craft straight and true. Binder and Drer, not having slept yet through the previous night's escapades with the wolverines in the forest, went below to rest. So no story or explanation of Dedlin's deeds or demise was yet given to the curious few. Perce was piloting. That left only Jamesyn, Gaebryl, and the mysterious Thordian Ott, who sat glaring suspiciously at everyone from his perch on the rear deck, remaining awake and on stalwart guard on takeoff. An hour later, leaning against Gaebryl's shoulder, Jamesyn, too, fell asleep in the warm glow of the morning suns. Holding loosely to the thick rail where he sat, wind in his hair, Gaebryl watched the tops of the trees racing past below them. He wondered if it were possible that the old wizard could still be alive down there somewhere, somehow. The boy king was right, though. Without Dedlin's guidance, what good was any of this other than to temporarily elude dangers in Tungulin and the Gharnians a few days longer? They were sailing absolutely blindly without any destination or direction whatsoever to undertake. We're going to leave it right there. We're going to call that part 1 because it's about half of the chapter. And we'll start again tomorrow with the rest.